So today I am in Frankfurt, Germany, and it is it's actually pretty nice. It's almost like Seattle. It's like 40 degrees outside. We're getting ready for Creative World, which is the biggest art exhibit in Europe. So it's a time that we get to see all of our distributors and retailers from all of Europe anyway. Australia will be here, Hong Kong, China, and much of Europe. So it's a very big show. It's a good show. It'd be nice to see everybody after 2+ years of COVID. Today, going to go over the blacks and talk about the blacks. There's some slides that I want to show you, and then we're going to talk about the gouache, because tomorrow Tiffany Mang will be showing and doing a demonstration in only gouache, which will be very interesting. So with that, welcome. Facebook, I'm sorry, I can't see you today. I only have an iPad, and I know how to do Zoom or Facebook, but not how to do both simultaneously on the smaller screen. So Ethel, can we see first, why don't we look at the Queen of Blacks?
Okay, the blog. There we go.
So this is an article, and Ethel will send it to both Facebook and to Zoom.
I'm about to do that.
And it
now.
goes over the blacks, which we're going to see. I've asked any of you, Gabriel, Latiza, Anna, any of you that have colors or anybody viewing, we're going to see some of these blacks interacting with colors. And you can see on the left-hand side, the high granulation that happens with the lunars. And then you'll see, as we go through the article, some things that you'll see with the lamp black, etc. So in the blacks, we have lamp black, ivory black, lunar black, Jane's red, green, Jane's blue, orange, hematite, black tourmaline, and McCracken black. So those are the blacks, and I'll go over those characteristics with you. So if we can go to keep on going with the article, Ethel, if we can go down.
Why do we?
So the neat thing is, you can see these are the colors that are going to be mixed with the blacks to show some characteristics. Hansa yellow, light, quinacridone rose, phthalo blue red shade, and sap green in this particular article. And if we keep on going, this is going to be with hematite, and you can see it's a granulator. So with the Hansa yellow, you can see the granulation on the bottom. So the granulation, the flocculation, or the reticulation, all the same thing. The movement of the color there. We keep on going. That's hematite. This is with ivory black. Ivory black's a really interesting color in that ivory black is a warm black. And I'll show you on the C-Lab how you can see that. But it's a warm, you'll see sort of a tint of yellow on the periphery if you do a wash, etc. So it's a warm black. And keep on going. Black tourmaline. Black tourmaline is a natural black. It's made from a mineral, and so certainly very, very granulating, as you can see there. It's so it says can be as dark as night or pale as a wispy fog. Very poetic writing. It's an interesting pigmented color that's made from semi-precious stone. And if we keep on going, this is lunar black. Lunar black is interesting in watercolor. We call it lunar black. In colors that don't granulate, for example, oils or the ground, it's called Mars black. So Mars black and lunar black are the same thing. It's just different reaction of the pigment because of the medium that it's within. With the ground, it's within permeable acrylic matrix. Within the oil, it's within the linseed matrix, and as you see here, it's within a gum arabic matrix. So it reacts very, very well to water, and we call it lunar black. The lamp black is the darkest black that we have. It's very, very dark. And so you can see it interacting there with the Hansa yellow, for example, and the sap. So, and we'll look at that in a minute. Keep on going.
That's it.
So there is another one. There's actually 3 other ones that are new before this, after this article. And one is Jane's red green, which is a black, and Jane's black blue orange. And those 2 were just brought out. And then there's McCracken black, which brought out after this article. So Ethel, if we can see the spreadsheet of the blacks,
Sure.
please.
Here we go.
So I put this together to show you. All this is downloadable information from the Daniel Smith website. First, I went to about the pigment characteristics and the C-Lab, and I just downloaded it and then manipulated this in Excel. And what I wanted to show you, for those of you that like this kind of thing, if we look at the top, I sorted this by brightness. So that's the L value of the C-Lab, is the brightness. And we can see lamp black is certainly going to be the darkest at 28. And hematite, very bright at 67. That's a very, very bright white. Yeah, 67 is actually pretty high. If we look at lunar black, the reason lunar black is 65, although Mars black is a very, very, very dark black, because the particles move away from each other, it leaves white space, and white space allows you to have that higher L value. So that's why it looks more bright, just because more light is coming back from the paper.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
You have on your list here on the number 7 and 8, Jane's black, blue, orange, and red, green. Are these the same as the ones you just released as black, red, green, and black, blue, orange? Is that the same product?
It is the same product. The label, the label is correct for everything, unfortunately, except for the omission of Jane's. So it is the same product.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for noticing that. So if we look at over the quadrant, we see that hematite is in the warmest quadrant. And then lunar black is also very warm. Black tourmaline is only warm. Ivory black's warmest. McCracken black is cool. And that's because it dips down because of that yellow blue being a negative 2.4. So it's a cool black. Jane's black is in the warmest quadrant. Jane's red green is cool. And then lamp black is in the warmest quadrant. So it's a way that for some of you that want to look the nuances between blacks, you can see which one might have more of a red or green cast or a yellow or blue cast versus one of the other blacks. So it's a way to compare 2 colors together to really get into nuances. Of course, you're an artist, you have really, really good eyes. You could actually wash these out and see many of those characteristics just in your wash, for example. The next one, I just sorted on whether it was a warmest quadrant, warm quadrant, cool or coolest. So you can see right away, if I was just looking and I wanted a very warm, I would choose an ivory, a lunar, a Jane's blue orange, a hematite, or a lamp black. If I wanted very a cooler black, I might go for the Jane's red green or the McCracken black.
John?
And yes.
I apologize. So number 7, jeans, black, blue, orange. Then is there more orange than there is blue that makes it warm?
So the Jane's blue orange is going to be in the quadrant of the yellow.
Hmm.
It's going to be in the yellow green quadrant versus the red green, which is going to be as a -3 and -1 is going to be in the blue green quadrant.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because just because I'm seeing the word blue doesn't mean it's cool.
Yeah, that's right. And this is how a spectrophotometer is looking at it when it's hitting back light. The other part of this is always you as an artist and your ability to feel color when you look at it. So this is from a machine, and it can easily compare one against the other from a machine standpoint. But then there's always the human standpoint, which is you as the artist.
Thank you so much for explaining that.
I just want to make sure I give both to you. That way you can play, if you want to, you can play with both of those things.
All right.
John, I see on Facebook we have a quick question from Sarah, and she's asking, are Jane's black mixes from Jane Blundell?
Yes, they are. Jane is Jane Blundell. Mhm. That's correct. So we have Jane's gray and then 2 blacks from Jane. So we have 3 colors from Jane.
John, what about the neutral tint? Wouldn't that be considered black?
No, it's not considered a black. Probably more of a hybrid of within the gray. But I will show that next week.
Okay.
I originally had it on here and I took it off, but let me show you next week and I'll show you why I put it more toward the gray than the black.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Now, if you wash it out, you may decide that it's more of the black. That's a-okay. This in no way says, well, that's how you think of it. I'm just giving you two ways of looking at it to give you the most tools possible if you want them. But whatever way works for you is really the right way.
John, Anna has a
Hi.
question. Go ahead, Anna.
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. Following up on Angela's question, I also had a thing because I was trying out the hematite that you were doing. And because I also have paint gray and you were mentioning the grays, wouldn't hematite be more gray than black? Or am I just, so I'm looking at it and it looks pretty gray.
Yeah,
No?
I mean, it could, but from the numbers, I would put it inside of the blacks.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we'll look at that. We can look at that next week. But I would put it in the blacks. If you put it in the gray, I would put it in the black. If you put it in the gray, that's fine. It's no big. It's no big deal.
No, it's
It's
because
really-
I look at the paint gray and it looks darker. So, and it's the gray. So, and I was looking at the hematite and it looks grayer, but it's fine. Yeah, I know. It's like you said that artists will put it wherever ultimately they want, right?
Yeah, because the human eye is going to see this differently than the machine is possibly looking at it. So, what the most important piece is really you as the artist and what you're seeing. This just gives you 2 tools, and ultimately you choose whichever way you want to look at it.
Okay.
That
Thank
becomes
you.
the right way. You're certainly welcome. I like your questions, everybody. Thank you for asking those. It's a really neat tool that just gives another way for you to look at things. I'm asked quite a bit, is this color a warm color? Is this one a cool color? And those questions are always asked in a comparison of something against something else, not necessarily of something by itself. These are all singles, so I put the hematite in the first quadrant, or the warmest quadrant. But then we could also say how does hematite compare or contrast to this other color. This is just a tool that allows you to kind of mathematically make that that inference. So I think you'll become very, if you wish, you'll become very at ease with this. It's a pretty good practical tool. And I'm trying to make the one on side the website where it's also, if you don't want to go through this, very easy. I'm going to turn it where it's a hover, because I see that's one part that's missing. So it becomes a much easier tool for you to use. Okay, Ethel, can we see? I think there's one more, isn't there? Or is that it?
For the Excel, there's one, but it's more like pointing on where they could download the chart for pigment characteristics. And
Okay.
then we now have the PowerPoint.
So what I'd like to do now is I have every color with me. They're just on racks inside of the show here in Germany. And I would make a mess out of this hotel room that wouldn't go over too well. So I've asked if any of you watch and can do it. I know Letiza has done some with Giovanni, who's ill today. Letiza, can you show yours first? And I'm going to ask everybody else just to please join in. So there is, you're gonna see what it is, Leticia, I'm gonna say. So it's 300-pound hot press, and the first one is the hematite. So you can see that really kind of cool granulation and that softness. I think that's why somebody said it was great. It really is quite soft as a color. Beautiful granulation. So on soft press paper and hot press paper. Can you show that one more time?
This also shares the incredible transparency there.
Very cool. So let's use, can you show it on the hot press paper one more time? So a question I get asked a lot is, will you get granulation on hot press paper? And the answer is yes. If something granulates, it's always going to granulate. And you can see it right there on hot press paper. You can still see the granulation within the hematite. And it's certainly much, much more defined on the cold press paper, where those particles can find their way down the grains of the paper like a river. Thank you, Letiza. So under that on hot press paper, there's ivory. And I don't know if you can see the edges. I can't see here, but I see a little bit. I'm kind of in the middle, on the bottom of the middle, and it's looks like it's warmer. The tourmaline is a really nice black. Primitics are always going to have good granulation. The lunar, you can see lunar is a synthetic, high granulation. You can see real high granulation on the lunar. And then the lamp black, if you contrast the lamp black to the ivory, if you had those together, you can see that the ivory has much more of a warmer context to it than does the lamp black, which is very black. It's our blackest and darkest is the lamp black. And here it is on rough. We can really, really see that granulation. You can see it inside of the lunar black very, very well. You can see it in the tourmaline. The ivory black, not much. And then the lamp black. You see how dark the lamp black is. Even compared to the ivory black, you can really see the difference between the two. And there it is on cold press paper. So you get that really great granulation, which you don't see in the ivory, but you do in the tourmaline and the lunar and the hematite. Very cool. Thank you, Letiza.
This is on 640 grams, no? Oh, no, 300. Okay, 300.
Letizia, we have a lovely comment on Facebook for you from Sarah saying, I love the different paper textures and how the pigments react.
Cool. Okay. Does anybody else have those? Gabriel, do you have any mixed with color? He was going to show us one of his drawings. Very cool.
What I have here is some paintings. This was a plein air painting with Jane's Gray. And then I'm glad it was Angela that said neutral tint. And this tree right here is with neutral tint. So you can see the difference between neutral tint and the Jane's Gray. And then here, I have, this is all Jane's Gray in this piece. I think Jane's Gray is a really nice color. We designed this painting to just show this building as it was before they put all these sculptures out in front of it. And so it makes it look nice and classic with like a nostalgic feel for it. Thank you, John.
That's very nice. You're very welcome. Very nice. Thank you.
I have more examples of gouache today.
Okay. I have a gouache in a
We'll
second. So I'll come back to that, Gabriel. Thank you. I want to hear what you have to say on that. So those are the blacks. The blacks are can be very, very interesting. Next week we'll go over the grays. And I hear something that's always talked about. I think I mentioned this at one point. Do you know that when someone says something is 300 pounds versus it's X amount of gram weight? It's kind of interesting because if you look at a sheet of laser paper, which is 20 pounds, you kind of say to yourself, well, that one sheet can't really weigh 20 pounds because I can lift it with my pinky. So it's not 20 pounds. And how they get the pounds, 300 pounds, 140 pounds, is the original size of the sheet, however it was at that company, or whatever size it is, and they put 500 sheets of those of the original size, and they weigh it, and that becomes the weight. So if it's the paper, say it was 18 by 24, and 500 sheets, which is a ream, that reamed weight weighed 300 pounds, it would be 300 pound weight. So one sheet would be 300 pound. The sheet doesn't weigh 300 pounds. It's just the original amount of 500 weighed that. And to me, the gram is always the better way of looking at it, because that's just a meter by a meter covered by whatever substrate you're talking about. And you weigh that meter by a meter, and that is the weight. To me, that's really understandable, more understandable, because anybody can do that. You just do a meter by meter, cover it with whatever the substrate is, weigh it, and that's the weight. Kind of with the pound, you're always missing part of the calculation because you never really know what was the original size you guys are talking about. So when I put 500 sheets of it together, it would weigh 140 pounds or 300 pounds. Anyway, I always think that's kind of interesting.
Can you tell us or expand more? I don't understand what you say by they put the substrate on top of it. What would
so one thing when we're looking at 140 pounds or the 20 pound weight of laser paper, the sheet doesn't weigh 20 pounds, but it's 20 pounds. What they do is they take 500 sheets of whatever the original size of that thing was. So it might be 18 by 24, it could be 48 by 48, whatever it is, whatever the manufacturer had for that. And they put 500 sheets of that and they weigh it, and that becomes the weight. So that one sheet that's 20 pounds is because 500 sheets at some given size weighed 20 pounds. So it's called 20 pound weight. If you look at when it's grams per meter, it's just a meter by a meter. You can just take out, a meter stick and go 1 meter by 1 meter. And if you put 10 sheets to cover that area and then weigh those sheets, that's where you're getting gram per meter squared. It's just a easier way to understand it, because you can always have, if I did that with laser paper, it would just take maybe 8 or 9 sheets of paper to cover that. I would pull those up and weigh it, and that would be the gram per meter squared weight of that paper.
I'm curious, does it also matter how much they roll the paper and compress the fibers together? Because this is not blotting paper we're talking about where it's spongy. We often add sizing to make it harder.
So each one, no, it wouldn't matter, because they're for a known size. They're saying this makes up a meter by a meter, and this is what it weighs. So whatever that is, and for the pound, they should be doing the same thing. Supposedly, because it's an ANSI standard, so it's supposed to be standardized. Supposed to be. Anyway, I always thought that was interesting, because you look at 20-pound paper, you know there's just no way that one sheet weighs 20 pounds. So where do they come up with 20 pounds? And that's how they do it. It's by the ream. But even 500 sheets of a laser paper doesn't weigh 20 pounds. So you go, oh, there must be something even more than that. And there is. You just don't know how big the original sheets were. Okay, so with that, let's talk about gouache for a second. I'm gonna flip this back. There we go. All right, so we have gouache that we just came out with, and we have watercolor. And I think there's, if you're my age, I'm 63. I remember back when they actually used gouache. They did it in a lot of papers and journals, etc. I know for 1 or 2 decades it's been gone, but there's a certain age which, if you're of that age, you understood what gouache was used for, etc., etc. So gouache and watercolor are not the same. We have watercolor, and we have gouache, which is a water media. And although they both have and use the same pigment, and they both use the same binder, which is gum arabic, the formulation between the two is absolutely different. Right? They're different animals. The gouache is formulated to be matte. There's different ways of making a gouache. You can make it acrylic, which makes it very inexpensive. We don't do that. You can use very large particles or larger particles, so they cover the paper and therefore make it opaque. We chose to use the same pigment and the same size, so we just use a lot more of our pigment that we use directly for watercolor to cover, and therefore when we formulate it, it's very opaque and it's very matte, and that's the characteristics of a good gouache. Okay, but they're really separate animals. I've had questions come back. Well, if I take lamp black, or if I take cascade green and I add a bunch of water, don't I get watercolor? No, you're taking apart gouache into its characteristic pigments, but it's really not a watercolor, because it's been formulated to be a gouache, and those are different steps than a watercolor. So if you want watercolor is the best thing to use for watercolor. If you want to play with a gouache, which is very opaque, you can use it right out of the tube. You have some of the same characteristics that you do with oils, in that you can put a black over a white over a black. There's just lots of other creative things you can do with it. You can actually see brush strokes through it. It's a different animal. Now, with all that being said, you're artists and you are unbelievably creative, and that's a God-given gift. So you can do anything you want with the two, but really they're different. One's a watercolor, one's a water media. You can do mixed media with it. They're just. I just want to just always try to explain that adding a lot of water isn't going to make it a watercolor. It's just going to make it a less effective gouache. Okay. But by the end of the day, you have whatever fun you have. So I know that's probably one of the biggest enjoyments of doing art is to have fun with it. I did want to show you some images, and tomorrow we have a watercolor artist with us. We have Tiffany Mang. She'll be our first demo artist who's only going to be doing gouache. But I wanted to show you some of the other artwork. Can we see that, Ethel?
Yeah, I'll do a share screen. Okay, do we see this now?
Yes.
That's
So these right here, and some of these online, you maybe will see a little more detail. But you can see actually brush strokes in some of this artwork, which is really interesting and not something that you see with watercolor unless you're using mass tone. What I mean by that, if we took quinacridone gold, Gabriel, do you have quinacridone gold in front of you? A tube or a stick?
I have Quinn Gold Deep.
That'll work. So I'm going to come back to Gabriel here in a second. So these are all gouache. And
I
gouache
have
is
quinacridone gold, John.
fantastic. I'll show both of you. So this is an example of gouache. You kind of see that it's more matte, more. And how about the next one, Ethel? Again, these are all also gouache. You can see the vibrancy of the yellow. And how about the next one? And these are other examples of gouache. And do we have one more?
Tiffany's.
Tiffany. So this will be, Tiffany will be our artist tomorrow. And this is Tiffany's gouache paintings. And you can see the middle one. Can we see the middle one more time? You see it's hard to see here, but if we look at the bottom of the painting, those are the kind of the neat things that you can do with a gouache. And you can really put that thickness to it, which will be interesting to watch tomorrow. And there's another one. And this is Giovanni, who's ill today. And this is Jansen Chow and his use of gouache. And this is Ethel, who's our narrator. Fantastic. Thank you, Ethel. So if we can see Angela and Gabriel. Gabriel, can you show everybody the end of the stick of the watercolor?
I have the actual tube of paint here.
So can you show them just the tube of paint without adding any water to it?
Yes. And when you look at it at the dot card, it's really dark.
That's what I want to show. That's what I want people to see is in watercolor, without the addition of water, you would not think it was a Quinn Gold. I mean, it's actually without water. It's quite ugly. And the characteristics are a little bit different within the gouache because you can actually use mass tone in the gouache. You wouldn't want to necessarily use mass tone from a watercolor. I mean, they're in a way they're while they're the same pigment and while they're the same gum arabic. And there's Anna showing same thing. They're just different animals. You can see when Gabriel adds the water, how beautiful it is and how not necessarily beautiful it is without it. Awesome. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Gabriel. So they're really good questions to get those asked in customer service. Want to make sure that was making clear between the two of them. Okay. So can we see, Gabriel, you have some of,
Sorry.
one more time, please?
The drawdown?
Yeah, let's see the drawdown, please.
Okay. Go. drawdown is here.
So what we're seeing in this drawdown is we're seeing the top, which is mass tone. Mass tone means just straight from the tube, without the addition of any water whatsoever. And so it's a very dark, brilliant, and matte mass tone. The 1-to-1, which is the center, is just 1 part paint to 1 part water by weight. So equal weight of paint and water, and then mixed, and a wash is done. The left-hand side of this is actually white. This is a piece of paper, watercolor paper, that on one side of it is just regular watercolor paper, and on the right-hand side we used Mars black ground and did that in black. So you see how it looks over white and how it looks over black. And the last one, which is 1-to-1-to-1, means 1 part paint to 1 part water to 1 part titanium white. And that just wanted to show the amount of pigment and how truly opaque these are. They're very, very opaque.
We also have this, John. All colors.
Okay. We have 22 more coming out in November. So that should be interesting as well. I'm sorry. And Leticia, are those the gouache?
The first row is gouache, then the watercolor. This is lamp black. This is khaki green in gouache and khaki green in watercolor. Hansa yellow medium in gouache, Hansa yellow medium in watercolor. So just a little bit different.
Thank you very much.
And then we have some watches by Giovanni, the same watch. With the lamp black with from the tube on white paper and black paper. From the tube, 50% of water and 50% with titanium white. This is the lamp black. This is the lavender. Same thing. The Hansa yellow medium. The Hansa yellow deep. The rose sienna. Oh no, this is burnt sienna. Burnt sienna. Ultramarine blue. Cobalt blue. Cobalt. Rose sienna. Permanent green light. Buff titanium. Cascade. Wisteria. Green green. Titanium white. And the last one, Hansa yellow light.
Very nice.
These are all the cards.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Could you show us the titanium white again? We didn't see the black part coverage. Thank you.
Leticia, can we see the titanium white? There we go. Thank you, Leticia.
I've also watched the McCracken and Jane. This is on cold press. Cold press. This is on rough paper. This is on soft press. And on the hot press, finally on the hot press. So in the hot press, the McCracken seems more transparent than the other ones, than the other paper.
I believe Lauren McCracken uses soft press paper that is bright white with his
Yeah,
McCracken.
this is the extra white. This is the extra white paper.
And Lauren has a whole paper that he did and a video presentation of why the McCracken Black is important to him and how he can cool it up or warm it up or cool it down as he sees fit when he's ready to do a painting. It's an interesting video.
He did a beautiful presentation in Fabriano last year in Bologna.
Awesome.
Wait
Thank you,
for-
Letiza. Thank you for sharing that. It's nice work.
John, we have a comment by Caroline in Facebook. She says, it's amazing how well the gouache re-wets from a dry palette.
Great. Welcome back, Carolyn. You must have delivered a
Oh, yes, you must have returned,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, good deal.
But that is the comment I can hear a lot, how well you can reuse dry gouache. So it's very important, this.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela.
Mhm.
Okay, so tomorrow, I just have to take a step to thank everybody for staying up. I mean, you guys, some of you stay up really late. Thank you. It's almost midnight here, and that's
Well, that's
amazing
every
to do that.
Thursday.
Yes. So thank you so much for doing that. Tomorrow, again, Tiffany will be showing how to use the gouache. It is recorded, so you can always watch the recordings of either this or the one tomorrow. They're always on the website. You can watch them at your leisure. But I hope you can join tomorrow. And thank you so much for joining today.
Thank
Good
you,
to see
John.
all of you. You're very welcome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thank you,
Nice
John.
to meet
Thanks,
you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
everyone.